What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 569 of AskGSM. Here today for Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. Check out our all-new WrestleRant store, ProWrestlingTees.com/WrestleRant. Grab a shirt, support the show, support the brand, support what I do. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, be sure to send in your questions to the show by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. Last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So let's get right into it here. Chris W. from YouTube. Got to say this before we get going here. Chris sent in these next two questions last week, and like a fucking idiot, I totally forgot. I literally read over them. I had them in the document, or I'm sorry, I didn't actually. I think last week was one of those weeks where I didn't create the document of questions because I was too busy going into it, so I just read off the actual social media pages, and for whatever reason, I read like his first question or two through YouTube or Facebook, and I forgot to answer them, and I forgot to answer the rest of them. So I put them in the document for this week. I did prepare ahead of time. Usually I do. Some weeks I can't just because it's too hectic. I put them in the document, but Chris was also nice enough to ask them again on the post on YouTube or Facebook. So I think in this case it was YouTube. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Chris. I apologize again. Let's get into it here. Your question was, he said, "Hello, Graham. Hope everything is going well. All is fine, well and fine. I know a lot of people like the storyline, but I'm not one of the biggest fans of Liv versus Rhea. I don't know why people love it so much, as I find it just predictable storytelling that people praise it as brilliant or well done. The whole storyline is basically positioning Liv Morgan as a home-wrecking slut, and that's it. Tell me how you really feel, Chris. There's barely anything other than one dimension to her character. On top of that, a lot of the promos need to be done in front of a live crowd, and I feel both Liv and Rhea's strengths on the mic work best in a vignette instead of in front of a live crowd. As when they speak in front of a live crowd, Liv's shrill voice and Rhea's vernacular don't hit the right note. Again, the match at Bad Blood wasn't very good, and the addition of Raquel just feels like WWE is trying to add more layers to a story that is drying up real fast. And there is not a snowball's chance in hell of this going past Royal Rumble. I know you like the dynamic between them, but do you think the rivalry is starting to lose a good amount of steam as the weeks go on?" I mean, the last part I completely agree with. The feud, simply by the fact that it's gone on for this long, I mean, you could say the same thing about Punk and McIntyre by the end of that feud. At least with Punk and McIntyre, though, I will say they were not doing the same thing week after week. It feels at this point with Rhea and Liv, even before Bad Blood, they were doing the same thing week after week. Rhea would call her out, Liv would evade her, Rhea would go after Liv. And now the weird thing, too, is that you add Raquel Rodriguez into the mix, which I was a huge fan of. She has a lot of history with both women. It makes sense for her to be involved in this story. You're right. It is a way to just add more layers to extend the feud, but at least her involvement makes sense. It's not like they added in Piper Niven, for example, to be a heavy to be a bodyguard for Liv Morgan, and, that just feels forced. Raquel at least has history with Liv. She has history with Rhea. That makes sense. I have no issue with that at all. The issue what I do have an issue with is the fact that since Raquel returned, she's been made to look like a complete loser. I mean, anytime Rhea has come out trying to get her hands on Liv, I think she has. And if she hasn't, it's because of Dom and not because of Raquel. Raquel has been disposed of by Rhea at least 2 or 3 different times at this point in the past 2 weeks. She is not a real threat to Rhea Ripley. I'm sure we will get that match again on Raw one of these weeks, and that is totally fine. They do need to wrap up the rivalry soon. I was totally okay with it extending beyond Bad Blood. I thought Rhea would get the belt back at Bad Blood at one point, and I'm thinking as we got closer, kind of feels like they should have Raquel come out and cost Rhea the win, which is what they did. I mean, granted, she won by DQ, the fucking botched DQ finish, but you know what I mean. Rhea Ripley didn't win the championship, so I'm fine with where they are with it right now. It does feel like they've hit a wall with where they can go. Like, the promos are the same thing every week. Adding in Raquel is a nice dynamic, but she's not really serving her purpose as being the barrier between Liv and Rhea. She just gets disposed of with ease, and then Dom's still there, or Rhea does indeed get her hands on Liv Morgan. So that's kind of my problem with the story right now. I have really enjoyed the feud overall. It's great to have an actual feud that isn't just over the championship. I think my only other issue with the storyline is that they kind of shifted the focus from Riv and Rhea. That was like their tag team name, which it wasn't, but you know what I'm saying. It sounds like Riz. Rhea and Liv. They kind of shifted their focus from them to Dom and now Raquel. When in reality, the whole reason why this rivalry started was because Rhea put Liv on the shelf, I think once or twice. I mean, she turned on her years ago. She put her on the shelf last year. And now Liv has kind of gotten her revenge on Rhea. She really has nothing more to prove. She's beaten Rhea. She's taken her man. She's taken her championship. And Liv really has nothing more to gain than beating Rhea again. But in their next one-on-one match, I'm sure Rhea will beat her for the belt. Probably at Survivor Series. I would not do Women's War Games. I wouldn't do it at all. There's just no story that makes sense. I don't really care to see fucking Pure Trash Collective in the match. I really don't give a shit about that at all. So I would just have Rhea and Liv have their blow-off match on that show. Rhea gets the belt back, and we can all move on. The Raw Women's Division won't be that much better off because they still have to build up new stars and give those women more stories beyond, oh, this is a 6-woman tag team match for the sake of a 6-woman tag team match. They need more depth and layers there with the Raw Women's Division, far more than even the SmackDown Women's Division. At least on SmackDown, you have the Bianca and Jade dynamic, the Nia and Chelsea. Tiffany dynamic. Chelsea and Piper are also doing their own thing. Chelsea just wrapped up a feud with Piper, she's with Piper Niven. I'm all over the place today. Chelsea wrapped up a feud with Michin in that garbage match, which was not a trash match, but it was that dumpster match, which was actually quite good. They got more going on SmackDown right now. They got Candice in the mix now. She just pinned Bayley on SmackDown, which I liked a lot. They got to pick up their shit with Raw. They got to pick up the slack there, give us some real stories. And at one point, it is a longer show. You would think, oh, they could fit in more on a longer show. It's a 2-hour show for now. But even when it was 3 hours, we really weren't getting many stories. Lyra's kind of there occasionally. Pure Fusion Collective is there occasionally. No one cares. No one cares. So they got to do a better job of that. But with the Rhea and Liv story specifically, I've enjoyed it overall. It has been a great feud. It is losing steam. I don't really think there's any doubt about that. It was a much hotter program, like 3 months ago, even 2 months ago. But because it's been going on for so long, and yeah, Rhea came back in like July. So, I mean, you know, even before that, they were kind of feuding in early 2024. It's really a feud that's been going on and off for a long time, but they do have to blow it off. I appreciate longer feuds, but if it takes too long to get to the end game and we get to a point where Rhea wins and people don't really care, and I'm sure people will care, but you kind of got to find that sweet spot of blowing it off at the right time and not just dragging it on for the sake of dragging it on. I do agree, it kind of feels like we're at that point right now. Even at Bad Blood, I was fine with extending it, but what they've had them doing in the meantime since Bad Blood really hasn't been all that interesting, like you said. Your second question, also from last week. You said Ethan Page's title reign ended 2 weeks ago on the CW premiere episode of NXT. Well, at this point, it was 3 weeks ago. But you sent this in last week, so I get it. But you said, and while I was happy with him at first when he won it, I was overall not impressed with his run with the belt. He did nothing with it for 3 months, had mostly forgettable matches with his style, not completely meshing with his opponents, and the shenanigans overbearing the match. I know that they were trying to make a new star with his hotshot title win at Great American Bash. I think it was a Heatwave, actually. But I feel it was a kind of an anchor to him instead of a rocket on his back. I just feel he's not world champion or main event level is all. Nowhere on the, or maybe at all, I think you meant to say, I don't know. Nowhere on the level of the other champions of the past. He isn't, however, the worst NXT champion they've ever had. What would you say are the best and worst NXT world champions and women's world champions in the history of the brand? And do you think Shawn dropped the ball on Page with the belt? I completely disagree. I think he had a good run. He wasn't going to hold the belt for 6 fucking months, but he had the belt for 3 months. He did have TV title defenses. They were not high-profile championship defenses, but the times that we did get to see him defend the belt were fun, chicken shit heel matches. He plays that role really, really well. He looks the part, had great promos. I think I really enjoyed his mic work. He got over. I liked the Joe Hendry feud for as long as that lasted. That headlined the September show, the No Mercy show, and that was fun. The Trick thing was kind of inevitable. I was kind of hoping he would beat Trick and then lose the belt to Trick at Halloween Havoc, just because they've had 2 singles matches and Trick's won both of them, and I don't think Ethan Page is getting the belt back at Halloween Havoc. So yeah, Page won the belt on a fluke, which was a nice surprise moment, but he was never really made to look credible against Trick. I mean, he did beat Joe Hendry, which was nice, but it's not like he's ever beaten Trick on his own or just beaten Trick at all. He did beat him in that 4-way, but he didn't pin him. His debut match he lost against Trick back at the Battleground show or whatever it was months ago. He lost to him in the CW premiere, and he's almost definitely going to lose to him again at Halloween Havoc. So, not a big fan of that, but I think Page himself did thrive in the role. I think he had a very fun 3-month run. He was never going to be champion long term. I think he could be. It is funny that you say you were a fan of it early on. I don't remember that at all. I remember you asking me questions early on in this reign, or even before he won the belt, that he was not impressive, or that he was, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought you had specifically asked me 3-4 months ago, why has he been so underwhelming so far, and it's only been like 2 fucking weeks or whatever. I'm not sure. I'm an Ethan Page fan. I think he has done well so far in NXT. He's gotten over, not as a guy, like, you want to talk about like underwhelming or someone that's not a world champion. Not that they ever position him at this level, but like a Shawn Spears is not that guy. I like Shawn Spears. He's not a world champion. He's not that guy. Lexis King, at least not right now, maybe not ever, is not that guy. Ethan Page is. A world champion on the main roster is very different from a world champion in NXT. I don't think either of those guys are even NXT championship material. But Ethan Page is. Ethan Page was NXT championship material, still is. Is he a world champion material? Does he have world championship potential on the main roster? That remains to be seen. I feel like so far, though, he has proven to be a bigger star in a smaller pond. When he gets to the main roster, it will be interesting to see how he's handled. Is he like a bigger star on that show, too, as far as like upper mid-card? I doubt that, honestly. I feel like they were just going to position him as your regular old mid-carder, kind of like where Carmelo Hayes and Andrade find themselves right now, which is fine. But and both of those guys are former NXT champions. Not everyone's going to be a world champion. Andrade, I think at this point, will never be a world champion in WWE. Carmelo Hayes, maybe. I'm not seeing it right now as far as like they're not going to push him at that level. But, with someone like Ethan Page, I'm also not really sure. As far as the best and worst NXT champions they've had, Sami Zayn held the belt for like 2 months. I mean, if we're talking like individual runs here, Shinsuke won the belt back from Samoa Joe. Was he champion like fucking 3 times? Or was it? No, he was champion twice. He won the belt in August, I think in 2016, a very good match with Joe. And then he won the belt, or lost the belt, the subsequent takeover in November, in that shocking finish. And they only did that so he can get the belt back from Joe in Japan at that house show that they did, that they also aired on TV. So I guess those runs are among the worst, just because they really weren't all that memorable. Shinsuke was really over at the point in which he won the belt both times, but neither of his runs were really all that great. Is he the worst NXT champion? I don't know. Karrion Kross, when he first won the belt, held it for a fucking day, but then he got hurt in that match, so he had to immediately vacate it. He did win it back in 2021, but I wouldn't say he had a terrible run. He was champion for a couple months. He had a couple of good matches on TV, a fun 5-way title defense at that TakeOver In Your House show. So I wouldn't say he's among the worst. Probably, definitely not among the best. But his NXT championship run was not among the worst, I would say. He had a couple good matches on TV and on the takeovers too. In the overall, like, I'm trying to think of like the overall champions. Braun Breaker was great. Carmelo Hayes, Dragunov were great. Ziggler really didn't do much. I mean, he won the fucking belt, lost it like within a couple of weeks. That was just to shock people and to do Ziggler and Braun Breaker at over Mania weekend. He did beat Braun Breaker to retain at Stand and Deliver before losing it to Braun, back to Braun on the Raw after Mania, which was random, but I guess they wanted more eyes on it. I don't know. I guess Dolph Ziggler would also be up there among the worst NXT champions. He was champion for not that long. Did he defend the title once? I think he did on TV against LA Knight, surprisingly enough, actually. They had a pretty good match. So, I mean, he did defend the belt at least once or twice. He did beat Braun Breaker at Stand and Deliver. I would still probably put him among the worst because he was not champion for like, not even like 3 months like Paige. He was champion for like fucking 3 weeks. So there's that. Early on, I mean, Neville was a great champ. Bo Dallas had a very good title run at the time. Sami Zayn was champion for 2 months, like I said. So probably Zayn. Zayn wasn't even on TV. He immediately got attacked right after winning the belt. He got attacked by Kevin Owens. He was gone for like a month. I think him and Neville had a rematch on TV. He beat him. And then he lost the belt like the following month to Owens. So I would say Owens, Shinsuke and Joe's second runs, and then probably Ziggler are the worst runs that I can think of. Keith Lee was also not champion for very long either. Actually, Keith Lee would probably also be up there for worst runs. He won the belt in that champion for championship belt match, title for title match with Adam Cole back in the summer of 2020, and he lost it like a fucking month later to Karrion Kross. And those matches were fine. The Cole match was great. The Karrion Kross match was decent. It was a solid match. But, like, I think he faced Donovan Dijak on TV for both the North American and NXT titles that he was holding at the time, and he beat Donovan Dijak, which was great, and a very good match. But again, that was really it. So I would probably put Keith Lee in that conversation as well. For best NXT champions, I think it's... And also Gargano was not champion for very long, so probably Gargano as well. He also had a pretty short run. He won it in that amazing match with Cole at Mania weekend, and then he lost it like within 2 months. I don't even know if he defended it on TV. So, I mean, that served the purpose because he was always an underdog. It made sense for him to lose it as quickly as he did, but didn't have the most amazing run. So I would probably put him in that conversation too. For best NXT champions, Adam Cole to me is still number one. He had an amazing run for over a year, amazing matches, so I gotta go him. I would go Adam Cole. I would go Finn Balor. He was kind of like the guy in NXT for as long as he was champion from the summer of 2015, and then again, years later, from 2015 through 2016, he had a great run. He got the belt back in 2020, and he was champion for a long time there as well, kind of carrying the brand during COVID, had a very good run at that point. Finn Balor is among, if you include both runs, he's among the best NXT champions. I mean, he's among the best NXT champions anyway, but collectively, he's definitely on that list. Easily, if not number one. So Balor, Cole, Braun Breaker had a very good run. That year-long run that he had was also very good. I don't know if I would put him in the top four. I probably would. But him, maybe. Neville also had a very underrated run that doesn't get talked about a lot just because it was like in the early days of NXT. From Big E was also not champion for a while. Seth Rollins wasn't champion for a while either, but I don't know if I would put them amongst the worst runs. Neville had a very good run in 2014. That was like a fucking 10-month run. He was champion for a while. Trying to think of who else. Owens wasn't champion for a while, but he had a fun run while it lasted. 2016 was kind of like Balor, Joe, Shinsuke. Bobby Roode's run I really enjoyed for as long as it lasted. I thought he had a very good run. I don't know if he's among the best NXT champions, but he had a very good run. 2018, Ciampa had a great run too. So you know what? I might go Balor, Ciampa, Cole, and Breaker, with Neville being a very close honorable mention. Bobby Roode also had a very good run. I mentioned that before. Aleister Black was not champion for that long. He was champion for probably 3 months. Andrade was brief, but he had a good run. Gargano's was very brief. But yeah, I feel confident in saying that. I would probably go, like I said, Cole, Ciampa, Balor, Breaker. And then Neville, a very close honorable mention. I think it also kind of represents the different eras of NXT too. Like Balor was like the early years of NXT, like when it was prime black and gold, like NXT at its best. Breaker was the new era. Cole was like that kind of, NXT is its own brand era, specifically on USA Network. He carried the belt for a while right after they arrived on NXT Network. Did it say the NXT Network? I meant the USA Network. What the fuck am I saying? When NXT arrived in the USA Network. And then Ciampa was kind of like that in-between period of 2017, 2018, and then also, passing the torch to Braun Breaker later on. So yeah, I would go with those four guys most likely. Next question of Chris's. He said, what are the possibilities of Jacob Fatu eventually becoming world champion? How would you set it up for him if he does, and how long would you keep the belt on him? I mean, I can't book that far in advance. It probably will not happen for a couple of years. Do I see him winning a world championship? I do. I think Jacob Fatu is amazing. He was it's not the same thing, but he was MLW world champion for fucking years. I think 2-3 years or some shit like that. He was on an undefeated MLW world champion for I think 2.5 years before he lost the belt to Alexander Hammerstone back in late 2021. Yeah, Fatu was great. You could book him the same way in WWE, and he's already like over. Like Jacob Fatu is amazing. So, as far as how would I set it up, I mean, I think him beating I don't know if Roman gets the belt back. Hopefully not. But like him, if Roman were to get the belt back, Jacob winning it for him would be cool. I don't think he wins the belt from Cody, which is why I say I don't think it happens anytime soon. Would he win the WWE title? Would he win the World Heavyweight Championship? I don't know. I don't know what the landscape of Raw and SmackDown will look like in the coming years and how I would put the belt on him. But honestly, like crowning him at Mania, if he were to win a Rumble and then win the belt at Mania from whoever, I feel like that would be pretty cool. Honestly, like if Breakker, he will probably win a world championship before Fatu, just because I think Fatu will be stuck in this Bloodline stuff for a while. And I say stuck, but it's entertaining, but he'll probably be... That'll hurt his chances of winning a world championship as long as he's underneath Solo Sikoa and he's just like a henchman in that Bloodline storyline. I think Breakker will win a world championship first. He can win the belt off of Braun Breakker. We saw that fucking tease on Monday night when those two went face to face, and it was awesome. So I could totally see him beating Breakker at a Mania after winning the Rumble to then win a world championship. That would be cool. Your next question: who do you see as possible candidates for the John Cena retirement tour? I may have answered this before, but I know I have a couple names in my head. I mentioned Breakker as someone, who could win a world championship someday. Breakker, like fucking demolishing Cena, or just having a match with him in general, I feel like would be fun. They did plant the seeds for it, actually, almost exactly a year ago in NXT. On that Super Tuesday edition of NXT, when they had fucking Cena and Taker on the show. Cena and Breakker had a segment on the show that was actually very good. And Breakker lost to Carmelo Hayes that same night, I think for the NXT... It was a number one contenders match for the NXT Championship, but they kind of planted the seeds right there. I think Breakker and Cena would be cool. Cena and Hayes, I think, would be fun. That's not going to be on like a pay-per-view match. But like you got the Boston connection, the Massachusetts connection. I think Hayes, that kind of feels like a U.S. Open type match, but I feel like that would be fun on TV to do. Him running it back a couple more times with like AJ Styles, CM Punk, Randy Orton. I would love to see all of those matches again, especially Cena and Punk. It's been over a decade since we've seen that. So I would really, really love to see that. Obviously, the quality of those matches will not be what they were years ago, but just for old time's sake, it would be fun. So any of those matches are very possible. I would love to see any of those. Him and Gunther, I feel like, has got to happen, and Gunther's got to fucking beat him. If Cena wins the World Championship during this retirement tour, I would actually like to see that. He should probably... Not even probably. He should beat Ric Flair's WWE record of World Championships won. The record that WWE touts anyway, because it's not a real record, and he's won far more than that across his career in many promotions. I'm not even really sure how they came to that number. But still, Cena beating that record, I feel like should happen. And I just don't think it should happen with him beating Gunther, whatever. Whoever the world champion is at that point, I feel like he should beat them. I mean, it could be Gunther, but it doesn't really, I don't think it should be. I think Gunther should probably beat a guy that is on the verge of retiring and is not in his prime anymore. I know it's John Cena, but I don't think a guy like Cena in the state that he's currently in should be beating someone like Gunther. Just my opinion. At this point, with Gunther being in his prime. So Gunther, McIntyre, I don't think we've ever seen Cena and Drew one-on-one before. They teased it years ago. I think Cena was supposed to be in the Rumble in 2019. I don't think he was ever actually supposed to be in, but in storyline, he was supposed to be there. And then he got hurt, quote-unquote, and they credited it to an injury that McIntyre gave him in a match or something, which was not real. He was just, I don't know why they would even advertise him if he wasn't supposed to be there. Just a weird thing. And they never went back to it. Drew was even, that was when he was a heel the first time on the main roster. Not a decade ago, but since he came back to the company. He was a heel at that point. You could have done it then, they didn't do it. He went babyface, and he was a great babyface, but now he's back to being a heel. That would be a fun match to do. Cody Rhodes, I feel like just makes a whole lot of sense. Passing the torch to Cody. I don't think he beats Cody for the belt. I mean, he could, but I'd rather Cody just beat him. Again, to kind of signify the passing of the torch. And maybe Cena beats him early on, and then Cody avenges the loss. I don't know. But yeah, you could do that. I'm good on Cena. Roman again, I don't really need to see that. Fatu burying Cena would be cool. I know we saw, hey listen, if Solo could do it, Jake and Fatu could fucking do it. And they got to capitalize this time, which they probably won't, but, whatever. So there's that. I listed out a whole bunch of scenarios and, what his final match could be. In an article for Bleacher Report. Or actually, I'm going to. I thought I already did. I'm mapping out the possibilities now. I gave away most of them to you right now, but I'm actually writing about that in a couple days on Bleacher, so keep an eye out for that. Next question coming in from Micah Does It from Twitter. Their first question was, saw this on the CM Punk interview, wanted your thoughts on it, on what you would do, so I have a question for you. You're in a bar fight. You need to get out. It's you and 4 current WWE superstars. Who are you taking with you to help you out? So originally I wrote down Brock Lesnar, Haku, Samoa Joe, and Ken Shamrock. But then I reread your question and saw that you said current WWE superstars. And even if I guess you could count Brock, but he's technically not current. I mean, he is, but he's not. He's not there right now, and he's not been there for over a year. I guess he's still technically under contract. But let's forget about Brock. He would be the easy answer. He would be the go-to answer for anyone. I'm not even really sure Punk said him. I think Punk said a bunch of other people. He may have said Brock. I don't know. He definitely said Samoa Joe. And that one I agree with. But Samoa Joe also currently does not work there. So for current WWE superstars, I would actually go Punk. Punk, he's not... I mean, we saw his UFC fights. He's not the, legitimately toughest guy in the company. But guess what? He knows how to pick a fight. He doesn't back down. So he may not be, the biggest guy or doesn't have the most successful track record, but we know from his AEW days specifically, he loves to get in fights. He loves to get in fights and does not back down even if he gets his ass kicked. In the AEW fights, we don't know specifically if he ended up on the losing end of those fights, so to speak. I don't know, but I would still go with Punk. I would go with Strowman. He's got size on his side, and he's a big fucking dude. I think he could definitely, he used to say, get these hands. So I would put Strowman in there. You'd probably get injured, but, I would put Braun in there. I would put Jacob Fatu because he's legitimately scary. One of the nicest guys on the roster, but just fucking legitimately scary. So Jacob Fatu, and probably Gunther. I feel like Gunther would be cool. He could, chop the shit out of someone, give him a fucking heart attack or something. I don't know. He's another one where he's not as big as he used to be, like Fatu, but he could fucking beat up a motherfucker. So I'm going to go Strowman, Punk, Fatu, and Gunther as my backup in a bar fight. But you'll never catch me in a bar drinking anyway. I mean, I might be in a bar, but I'm not going to be, picking a fight or drinking alcohol unless someone picked on me. So I guess in that case, there's your realistic answers if they were in there with me. Your second question, what are your thoughts on Samantha Irvin leaving WWE, and is she headed to AEW? And what was your favorite ring announcer moment of hers in WWE? Yeah, I mean, like everyone else has said, I was really surprised by that. When Ricochet left WWE and his contract expired over the summer, I mean, I was among the many that said that doesn't automatically mean that we're losing Samantha Irvin. Not everyone has to go where their significant other works. There's a lot of couples currently that do not work in the same company. Zelina Vega and Malachi Black, Keith Lee and Michin, Chelsea Green, Matt Cardona. There's a lot of people who do not work in the same company currently. There's a lot of couples who do, and they will follow that significant other. But there's a lot of examples where they don't. I mean, even Renee Young, for a long time, she did end up going to AEW, but years later. Like Jon Moxley joined AEW at the beginning in 2019. Renee Young was still with WWE for well over a year after that. He left in April, May of 2019. She was still there until August of 2020. And it wasn't just because he wasn't there. She also wanted to have a family, and they had a kid, and she didn't join AEW for another 2 years after that. So it's not always about they're going to the other company, and maybe she will at some point. I'm not denying that at some point that she will. I just think it's stupid to assume that she's automatically going to AEW. Could she? Yes. I acknowledge the possibility. I acknowledge it, But I don't think that's why she left. I think if she left just to be with her husband, listen, I mean, everyone has their own priorities. I guess you can make of that what you will. I don't really think that's the case. What I'm going off of here is the fact that Samantha Irvin is tremendously talented. One of the best ring announcers that WWE has ever had. If you ask some people, they might tell you the best they've ever had. I just think personally that if she wants to be with her husband in a smaller promotion, and AEW is, an actual alternative, obviously. I don't know if alternative is the correct word anymore. It's not like they're the fucking NWA. And listen, it would be a significant step down as far as ring announcing goes. I mean, Ricochet, you could say what you will, but I actually like the idea of him back in AEW for the first time. Her going from being because Ricochet wasn't the guy in WWE. For Samantha Irvin's spot with where she was, she announced every fucking match at WrestleMania this year. So I would just find it very hard to believe that she would be the focal point of ring announcing. Everyone loves her, and all this other stuff. And then she would just leave to go to AEW. I would find that very hard to believe, just to see her husband, who has only been gone from WWE for a couple of months. Is it possible? Yes. I would think that would be a little too premature, but again, it's not my life, it's not my marriage, whatever. I think, and I had speculated this before any of the reports had come out, and Alexis thought she had left for her music career, and we were kind of both right, because that was in the report, but also she wanted more opportunities outside of WWE. They couldn't work out a schedule that made sense. She wanted to do maybe like a part-time thing. They don't really do that, it seems like, with ring announcers. They do it with Pat McAfee. I mean, that is worth pointing out. Pat McAfee is, he's there half the year, and the other half he's doing college football. So they could do it with her. I mean, and it's not even as if like Alicia Taylor or even Mike Rome, and I like those, I'm not the biggest Alicia Taylor fan. I like Mike Rome a lot. They're dispensable. Like, they can easily get rid of them if they wanted to. Samantha Irvin is a lot less expendable. I don't think you could just get rid of her and she's easily replaceable. I mean, they did replace her on Monday with Lillian Garcia, who I like a lot. She's obviously excellent too. Lillian's not the long-term answer. They're going to have to look for a long-term replacement in the meantime. But I think with someone like her, you make an exception, like Pat McAfee. I mean, Pat McAfee's a big name in the college football. I mean, a lot of people value Samantha a lot more than they do Pat McAfee. And they still didn't want to work something out. I think that's a shame. But honestly, I said this in my initial tweet, again, before all the reports had come out. She's bigger than wrestling. I mean, honestly, I think it was inevitable that she was going to leave WWE because she loves WWE. It wasn't just a job for her. She obviously has a passion for pro wrestling. She met her husband in that company. They treat her very well, seemingly. She had a lot of fun, all this other sort of shit. She seemed like she was having a great time. But she's honestly destined for bigger and better things. And I think those bigger and better things are not ring announcing in AEW. Now, could she go off and do other projects, become even bigger than she is currently while also doing AEW? Because they might allow her to work in AEW and also do outside projects? Yes. But I just don't believe for a second that was the single factor as to why she would leave. Just to be with her husband and just to go to AEW. Newsflash, people, there is a fucking world beyond WWE. There is a world beyond AEW. It's called the actual world that is not wrestling. There are plenty, I had so many people fucking respond to me on Monday saying, well, clearly, because I said she's destined, I literally said she's on to bigger and better things. Could she go to AEW? Yes, but I just don't see that. But I said she's on to bigger and better things. People are like, oh, that's a weird way of saying AEW. Clearly, bro, she's headed to AEW. Like, are you fucking listening to yourselves? First of all, it wouldn't be a bad thing if she did go there. Second of all, I mean, it would be weird if she just left for that one reason, just to be with her husband and be in the other company, which I guess some people do. And again, whatever. Who are we to judge? But hey, whatever. That's not really for us to say. At least argue about over social media. But the bigger thing is, there's other shit out there. She literally just did the fucking announcements, I think, the national anthem, I believe, at the Cowboys game or something a couple weeks ago. I think it was a week and a half ago. I mean, she can do really anything she wants. She was singing before she came. It's not like WWE gave her big break. She was already very talented doing other shit before she came to WWE. But people don't really know that or realize that, because if it doesn't happen in WWE, then it doesn't matter. So, I don't know. Fucking open your eyes, people. It's not just about wrestling. It doesn't mean that she has to go do something wrestling related. If she was a wrestler, then yeah, that would make sense. There's only so many places to work that are in wrestling. But she's far more than just a ring announcer. Again, I'm not denying at some point that she could go to AEW. I'm sure there's a chance that she could go there at some point if they allowed her to do outside projects, which I'm sure Tony Khan would love to have her. They have Justin Roberts, but they let go of Dasha, who I didn't think was really that good. They have the new girl, Katie or whatever her name is, and she's decent. She's new, but she's not bad. So, but they don't really have a Samantha Irvin. No company does. I mean, Samantha's on a whole other level. But I just feel like she's going to go on to do other shit. Why subject yourself to just wrestling if you can honestly become a bigger star, make a whole lot more money, I'm sure, and enjoy other shit than just ring announcing? She started as a singer, not doing ring announcing, I don't think. So why not just go off and do that? It makes total sense to me as to why she would leave. As far as my favorite ring announcing moment of hers, I think it's got to be Mania. I mean, I've said this before, I think the Chelsea Green thing is stupid. I know a lot of people like it. Oh, it's cute. I feel like she got a little too cute for her own good with some of those announcements in WWE. Not everyone has to have this unique entrance. I know the wrestlers like it, so again, who the fuck am I to say? But I just always thought it sounded stupid. And Chelsea Green has, become a bigger name because of it, so there is that. I just thought it was silly, personally. Like Lillian Garcia, she just has a great voice. She doesn't have to make every wrestling announcer, every wrestling name feel special, because she does that automatically. She doesn't have to put a different spin on it. Like the Imperium thing, I didn't really mind. The Ludwig Kaiser, I don't know. I have my own nitpicks with that. But as far as my favorite announcement of hers, it would have to be at Mania when Cody won. She got emotional when Cody won the championship. It only added to the emotion of Cody finally becoming champion, finishing the story, beating Roman, following in his father's footsteps, something his dad was never able to do by winning a world championship. She clearly cared, she had the passion, and it was an amazing moment. So, I mean, I feel like that trumps everything else, is him finishing the story and her announcing it. That was a phenomenal moment. Jordan B. from YouTube, your first question, I think only question was, for this week. You said, this just randomly popped in my head. When Bully Ray and Devon were feuding in TNA, were you surprised that TNA did not book them in a one-on-one singles tables match? The closest to them facing each other in a tables match was the go-home Impact for the 2011 Against All Odds pay-per-view, where they have Bully Ray, Matt Hardy, and D'Angelo Dinero face Devon, Rob Van Dam, and Samoa Joe in a six-man tables match. I remember during Devon and Bully Ray's street fight at Against All Odds, Devon's twin son. Oh my God, remember that shit? Devon's twin sons coming out. I know that they wrestled on Dark a lot. They used to, not now. But they got involved in that storyline and it was stupid. But anyway, he said Devon's twin sons came out to help their father. The match ended with Bully Ray handcuffing Devon to the rope, attacking both sons, and pinning one of them for a confusing ending. You said win of them, but I think you meant one of them. For a confusing ending. And then putting one of the sons through a table. Later on, Bully feuded with Tommy Dreamer, which led to Devon costing Ray the match against Dreamer. Devon and Bully Ray's feud was supposed to continue until Bully Ray joined Immortal, and TNA just canceled the feud. At the end of the day, I was just surprised that TNA did not finish the feud and do the singles tables match, especially with their tables history. Would it be cool if they did an Iron Man tables match? I'm sorry for the long question. I know it's a weird question to ask you. There's a lot of weird questions you can ask me. That is not one of them. It is random, but it's not weird. It's funny that you remember all the ins and outs of this feud. I was watching TNA at that point. I don't remember, any of that. I remember the Twin Sons thing, but I couldn't tell you what pay-per-view they faced off on and who got involved. I remember the Dreamer stuff very vaguely. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I don't think I was thinking at that point, why aren't they doing a tables match, although it would have made sense. I don't think it was because I cared that much about the feud that I was really anxious to see the blow-off. When the feud kind of quietly dissolved, I wasn't like, oh man, that's such a bummer. I mean, they dragged that shit on for fucking months. He turned on Devon in November, and they were still feuding by the spring. It's fucking Devon and Bully Ray. Even in 2011, it was like, who gives a shit? And I like both the guys, but Bully Ray was doing far better work than Devon was. Devon as a singles guy, I didn't give a fuck about. So, I mean, honestly, it was probably for the better that they moved on from the feud without really blowing it off. It would have made sense to do a tables match, but Bully Ray just became such a bigger star in 2011 than Devon did. I'm not really shocked that they moved on from the feud and just put Bully in more important shit. Because Devon was not going. Was Devon not even at Bound for Glory 2011? I don't think so, was he? I mean, maybe he was hurt. I don't know. He left TNA, and then he came back and joined Aces and Eights with Bully, which made sense. They never feuded again after that. But that was the extent of it. I really didn't care. A tables match would have made sense. An Iron Man tables match sounds fucking stupid. I'm sorry. That sounds like a very stupid stipulation. Especially for Bully Ray and Devon, who in 2011 did not need to be having this epic encounter with an Iron Man stipulation. That would have been torture. But a regular tables match, if they never did it, that would have made sense. They just never did, for whatever reason. I don't know why. No L from Facebook, their first question was. Their only question. They also asked about horror movies, dumb things you've seen in a horror movie, top 5. I don't know. I have no idea. But there's dumb shit I see in horror movies every fucking time I watch one. But there's just too many of them to count that I can't really remember. But that's just the nature of horror movies. So your question was for this week, if you had to redo one Royal Rumble winner from the last 5 years, who would it be? You know, I almost said Charlotte Flair from 2020, because when Charlotte won, that was just fucking stupid. I mean, we got the Rhea match out of it, and that was a cool match. It's not like Charlotte faced Bayley or Becky at Mania for either of their belts, but still, it was Charlotte, really? Shayna really should have won that Rumble, especially since Shayna ended up feuding with Becky anyway going into Mania. I mean, Shayna coming in from NXT and winning the Rumble would have been fucking massive. But she lost, and then she lost at Mania, so that didn't help. So I would have gone with Shayna. But I think even more egregious than that, the 2022 Rumble fucking sucked. And I think even worse than that was the fact that Brock won. Brock literally just lost the WWE title earlier in the show to Bobby. And then he won the Rumble so he could face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And then he won the WWE title anyway at Elimination Chamber. It's just because they wanted to do champion versus champion. It was the most convoluted way to get to a match that, not that no one wanted to see because they were having a good feud. It did not need to be title for title. That was just fucking stupid. And merging those belts for a year the way that they did, like, severely hurt the product for a very long time. They needed 2 world titles, and they fucking, I mean, at least they got rid of the Universal belt, so that was a plus. But that was just really, that was really dumb to me. That was really stupid. So, yeah, I mean, Brock winning the Rumble was so disappointing. And the funny thing is, there wasn't even really a lot of people that could have won that would have been satisfying. Because, like, Big E had just lost the WWE title. He could have won the Rumble, but it's like, we just saw him as champion 3 weeks ago. So, but even that would have been more, satisfying than fucking Brock, who had just lost the WWE title. No one wanted to see Brock win the Rumble. The match itself sucked. I mean, at Mania 2, I'm talking the Rumble match itself. There weren't a lot of great options. In early 2022, the roster was desolate. They had fired so many people in 2021 and in 2020 that they really didn't have a whole lot of options in 2022. Like, literally, the roster was fucking depleted. And the main event scene sucked on both shows, which is why we were getting Roman and Brock on both brands, basically. There really weren't a lot of good options. So I honestly don't even really know who else you would have gone with instead. I said Damian Priest at one point. Damian Priest was building momentum, but by early 2022, they didn't give a fuck about the guy. I mean, they didn't. He had no momentum. They were just cutting his legs out from underneath him. He was another one they kind of ruined there for a while before they didn't, which is great. He's finally over now, which is nice. But at the time, even that would have fallen flat probably. That would have been better than fucking Brock, though. I would have taken that over Brock any day of the week. The Brock thing just sucked. So, definitely Brock. I would redo that one. Christopher L. from YouTube, or Facebook rather, his first question was, this weekend I have heard that JD from NY206, JD from NY, from YouTube, and Tony Khan were going at it back and forth with TK arguing that everyone is entitled to their opinion, and JD arguing subjectivity. I found it sad on JD's part that he had to show off his hypocrisy and make an ass of himself while being humbled by TK of all people. Whose side are you on in this exchange, and why do you dislike JD as you have previously mentioned? So I did see what you're talking about. I don't like hate JD. I don't follow his content. The funny thing is, I feel like when he gets the most amount of hate, it's really not that big of a deal. Like the points that he expresses, like especially now in the AEW product, people can like quibble with it and argue with it, but he's not wrong. It's just the way that, like, I think my biggest, not even recently, because, like, he doesn't make dumb points now. I feel like I can't go back and pinpoint exactly what it was. I've not called him a clown. Maybe I have. I don't know. That's probably a little harsh. But, like, some of the shit that he was saying years ago, like, he was making, like, sex. I mean, I know there was, like, racist stuff out there, too, like, stupid stuff that he said, dropping some pretty damning words and whatever. You could probably fill in the blanks. But I just remember that Alexa Bliss thing from a couple of years ago. This was like maybe 3-4 years ago at this point. But he was like, oh yeah, you're better off on your back. I forgot exactly what it was, but it was like some fucking stupid sexist joke or just remark. It was really dumb. Just some of the stuff he said about women in general on his show is pretty, like, I just don't know why you would say that at all, let alone publicly. Like, it was just really dumb. I don't really think he says stuff like that now. Again, I don't follow his shit, so I don't really know what exactly he's saying now. I see his content on my timeline a lot because people argue with him. It's because he rants. I mean, listen, the name of my channel is called Wrestle Rant, and he's obviously built a very successful empire. So obviously, whatever that audience is that he's cultivated, they like what he does. It's not like, again, even I'm just to kind of clarify here, it's not really what he says nowadays. I think the only real knock against the guy is that I guess it's just like the yelling and the screaming thing people have an issue with. That's not really my cup of tea. I think that's a little over the top. Like, he makes good points, but then he like fucking screams about it. But again, people like that stuff, which is why he's built up the audience that he has. So again, who am I to say anything really? So whatever. As far as the TK thing goes though, I'm not really on a side. Like, I don't know, man. this is what happened, really. So JD, I think, made a comment about Daniel Garcia. He doesn't think that he's worth shit. He's not like the future. He's a loser, whatever. Honestly, I mean, that's his opinion. I like Daniel Garcia. I mean, he's grown on me. I wasn't really a big fan a couple years ago. He's pretty kind of fucking bland in my opinion, but I feel like he's improved. I think Daniel Garcia does have a bright future ahead of him. He doesn't think so, and he said as much on Twitter. Okay. And then he went back and forth, I think, with some fan about it, and then Tony Khan responded. Why? Like, that doesn't really make any sense to me. What is the point of Tony Khan responding to that? What does Tony Khan, Tony Khan's not wrong, because I think JD called some guy an idiot. I mean, that's another thing, too. I think, again, there's a lot to dissect here, but I think JD had called someone an idiot, I forgot for what reason, for thinking maybe that Daniel Garcia has potential. Again, he's not an idiot for thinking that. I mean, he can have his opinion. Anyone can have their opinion, whether it's right or wrong, stupid or whatever, unless it really is like offensive or whatever. I just don't understand why Tony Khan has to respond. Like, he gains nothing from it. It just looks stupid. I mean, that's not even among like the top 10 dumbest things that Tony Khan has done on social media in the last couple of years alone. But it's still just unnecessary. Why argue with a fucking podcaster, like a YouTuber? Why? Me, him, anyone, really. I just don't really see the point. It's not like JD was like, man, you're right, TK, like, you make a great point, or vice versa. You know, Tony Khan was right where he was like, you know, I've never called you stupid before. But I just feel like Tony Khan does have a tough time of taking criticism. I do. Because I remember when JD used to praise the shows, and they were worth praising when he was praising them, I think. I forgot what period that was exactly, but he was praising the shows. I think Tony Khan would like his tweets. I don't know if he follows him. I don't know. I'm sure there's other DM conversations going on there that we're not privy to, but and not in a bad way, just as far as like if Tony Khan doesn't agree with something, he might hit up JD and be like, what did you mean by this? Whatever. But if he loves the show, then hey, I'm not going to question it. I'm going to like your tweet. It's just like, why even listen to that? Like, just stay off of Twitter, stay off of social media. Don't bother engaging unless someone's making like a really offensive remark. Like, if he was like saying some really like dastardly shit, then yeah, go after the guy to defend your employees. But he was just saying that Daniel Garcia ain't worth shit. Okay, that's his opinion. Who cares? Who gives a shit? There's a lot of people who feel that way. I don't feel that way, but I'm not going to argue with the guy. I just don't really see what's solved by doing that. If he has his opinion on stuff like that, who cares? He screams, like, I think he's actually become more bearable, honestly, because he's not making, like, shock jock remote, jokes about, like, oh, women should be, like, go get laid or something. Like, that shit's just stupid. Maybe he still does that and I'm not aware. I don't know. The clips and stuff that I've seen are all like from years ago as far as that stuff goes. Maybe he's matured in that way. I don't really know. But like the going back with TK thing, I mean, obviously he's going to respond. Tony Khan responded to him first, but why would Tony Khan even get involved? I'm not really on a side here. I just think it's like, who cares? You know what I mean? I guess we spent this long talking about it, so I am breaking it down. But that's my stance on it, really. I mean, same thing. I mean, if I had an issue with AEW, I don't know if I would go at it as aggressively as JD did. He's just really aggressive sometimes when he doesn't really need to be, I don't think. And he likes, I don't know, people like arguing with them. He likes arguing with them back. I don't know. Who really cares, I guess? I just don't really think it's that big of a deal. But if it's something worth arguing over and you want to defend yourself because people are burying you for no reason, then sure. But a lot of the times, it's just dumb stuff. Tony Khan doesn't need to be on Twitter. Let's all just fucking take a chill pill. It's wrestling. Who gives a shit, Your second question. Yesterday, or on Monday rather, Samantha Irvin announced that she was leaving WWE due to the company agreeing to a new, and I guess not agreeing to a new contract term is what you meant to say. And as expected, the announcement was met with some positivity, but mostly awful backlash by most WWE fans online, all of whom believe that she is immediately going to AEW. What are your thoughts on the sickening fan backlash from fans? And does this show how cancerous social media is for the pro wrestling business? Obviously, I already talked about the Samantha Irvin stuff earlier, so I won't go into too much more detail about that beyond what I've already said. But as far as the backlash on it, yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, and it's not even like, oh, WWE fan bad. Like, a lot of AEW fans are fucking stupid, too. I think it's probably an equal amount either way. So I know you kind of shit on the WWE online fan base, Chris, and your questions, but the AEW stuff, it's very much equal. Trust me, I get the same amount of backlash about stuff from both fan bases when you say stuff they don't like. But as far as the Samantha Irvin stuff goes, like, first of all, who cares? Like, I think, like I already said, if she were to go to AEW because she's leaving WWE, directly because that's why, like, that's the direct reason as to why she's leaving WWE. Kind of silly, but whatever. That's her own life. She can make her own choices. She's an adult. Who gives a shit, I guess. But I don't even really think that's the case. And I don't know if I said this earlier, but her husband outright came out on Twitter, Ricochet, came out on Twitter, and it was like, she's not coming to AEW. And why would he have any reason to lie? Why would he just not say anything? You know what I mean? Why would he say that she's not coming, and then she ends up signing there anyway? That would just make no sense. So he immediately shut that down, and people were giving him shit. Who cares? And he responds to too much stuff at this point. He probably finds it fun. Like, don't even bother. Don't even engage, because they see that you respond, and they're just going to say more vile, hateful shit. Again, if you have your own opinion as to why, if you think it's dumb that she's going to AEW, I just don't really see the point of tweeting that person or her husband or getting all angry about it. You can think it's silly or whatever. Like I said, I would think that would be odd. But again, if she wants to be with her husband, whatever. And that's really it. That's really all there is to it. To say that she would be a fucking idiot to go to AEW or to tweet that or to use expletives and vulgar language and shit towards her or just in general and just tweeting it, again, it's because these people don't have friends. It's because they probably don't have significant others to discuss this with and whatever. So their only real platform is online. That's the only way that they can really get this shit out and discuss it. Stuff they probably don't need to be saying publicly, especially towards those people. It just doesn't make any sense, but that's how wrestling fans, a lot of wrestling fans will always be. That's just how it is. Your next question. AEW is now doing some business with Scott D'Amore's new company, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, even going as far as working with Mauro Ranallo. A collaboration with the company, I think, could help MLPW with exposure of their talent and get them on the map quicker than most. Much of the way of the NXT TNA relationship. Do you think this could help D'Amore's new company? And do you see this eventually persuading D'Amore, maybe working more alongside AEW with the endgame of him becoming a part-time writer for Dynamite, Collision, or Shockwave? Here's the thing. I mean, I didn't see their first show. I saw a lot of clips. It seemed like it was successful. It seemed like a lot of people were talking very positively about it. People were raving about it. That's great. I wouldn't really see the hope, unless he just wants to make more money and wants a consistent income or whatever. I wouldn't really see the point of throwing that away unless they cool off considerably and they just go nowhere. At this current point, I don't really know why he would leave and then leave his own promotion, what he's attempting to build up now, just to go work for AEW. If he can do both, then great. But if he has to choose, I would just keep doing what he's doing. If he's built something there that's special, that people care about and they want to see more of, then continue doing that, I would think. But again, I'm not the one being paid here by his own company or Tony Khan or whatever. So if it's like a money thing and it makes more sense to go to AEW, then do that. People were saying a while ago that it would be cool to see him kind of take the reins of Ring of Honor and kind of do what he was doing with TNA, do that with Ring of Honor. The current state of Ring of Honor, listen, it's better than it just being a fucking tab on Peacock. I agree. I've said this before. I agree that it's better than that. But the weekly shows are completely fucking missable. They're not good. The pay-per-views are amazing, but that's it. Otherwise, Ring of Honor is a dead brand. No one cares about the belts, the people on the roster. No one gives a shit. No one's paying for Honor Club except for the diehards, and I can't imagine there's that many of them. The general public does not give a fuck about Ring of Honor. I know maybe compared to a couple years ago, more people are watching and care now than a couple of years ago because it's under the AEW umbrella. Sure, but in the grand scheme of things, there is more they could be doing with it. There's only so much Tony Khan can do. Would bringing in Scott D'Amore be the answer? I think it would help, for sure. But again, that was before I had said that and people were suggesting that, before we knew that he was starting his own promotion or relaunching a promotion or whatever Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling is. I don't know if it's new or if he's bringing it back. I don't know. But he's got a lot of buzz with that right now. So what would be the point of dumping that and then going to join Ring of Honor, a show that no one gives a fuck about? And I guess you could build that from the ground up or help rehabilitate that image there. But it would seem like a downward move. It would seem like a step backward, if anything. So he should just keep doing what he's doing. And when it runs out or people don't care anymore and they're not making money from it, then maybe he could do something with AEW. But I do feel like it is inevitable. Not even just like recently because they have an AEW relationship. They used AEW talent. D'Amore did on that first show. But D'Amore was already working with Tony Khan when he was in TNA years ago. They had the TNA AEW relationship. Before TNA and NXT were working together, AEW and TNA were working together. And I enjoy the NXT working relationship more personally. But the AEW one was, the first of its kind as far as that goes. Not first of its kind, but like they did it before WWE did. And they had a good rapport at that point. So, yeah, I could totally see him working for Tony Khan at some point, but it shouldn't come at the expense of what he's attempting to build up. If he could do both, great. If he has to pick, you got to go with what makes sense. Currently, I would think sticking with what he's building up, he just started. So for him to stop that and then go to AEW would be stupid, I think. But when it runs out or whatever, if it runs out, then you go to AEW. I feel like that would, to me, make more sense. At Millennial Noob from Twitter, their question was, do you think that Jey Uso will join the original Bloodline in order to defeat the new Bloodline at War Games? I do. I think the end game of this whole angle with Jey Uso coming out on SmackDown, and I may not have thought that a couple of weeks ago just because it kind of felt like they would have to rush into it, but they're progressing the story nicely, and they also have Raw and SmackDown to tell that story, not just SmackDown. If you only had 6 or 7 SmackDowns, then it would feel rushed. But they're also using Raw too, because Jey Uso's on Raw, so they can, use Raw as well to tell that story with him losing the championship because of the Bloodline, Jimmy going there, trying to reunite with him, blah, blah, blah. So that does make a lot of sense. I do think we are getting Jey, Jimmy, and Roman inside War Games. Who's the 4th member is the question. Do not fucking enlist Cody Rhodes. Do not, please. Please let him be done with the Bloodline. Do not use Cody. Owens is obviously a heel. Orton would be silly. Why would he fucking team with the Bloodline? To me, the only other answer is Sami Zayn. I feel like Jey can be like, listen, I will help you guys. I still don't completely trust you. But if we're going to do this, we need even more backup, and I do have someone I can trust in Sami Zayn. That, to me, makes even more sense. So that's what I would do personally. At the Average Grunt from Twitter, do you think we'll ever see a TLC match on the main roster again? Or is it now forever relegated to NXT's Halloween Havoc as tables, ladders, and scares? You know what? Before you mention that, I literally had never thought about this. We have not gotten a TLC match on the main roster in 4 fucking years. They've done them at NXT. They did one with the Creeds and the now former Lotharios, Los Garza, whatever you want to call them. Angel and Humberto in NXT about a year ago. It wasn't for anything, I don't think. I think it was just a regular match, but it was a TLC match because that was the stipulation they landed on for Halloween Havoc. They've done other ones in NXT like Candice LeRae and Io Sky, also at Halloween Havoc. That was before the final TLC pay-per-view. So at TLC back in 2020, the last TLC pay-per-view, they did Drew and AJ and Miz. It was so fucking stupid. They had him cash in Money in the Bank, but he didn't actually cash in. So he was just added for no reason. It was stupid. And Drew retained the title. But they also did Owens and Roman, one of their matches as part of that feud back in late 2020. I think that was their first match, actually, as part of that iteration of the rivalry. And Roman won with the help of Jey Uso. They have not done a TLC match in the main roster since then. That's a great point. So they could, though. Do I think we'll ever see a TLC match in the main roster again? Absolutely. But it would just have to make sense. I feel like for a big blow-off, it makes sense to challenge someone to a Hell in a Cell match. You're not going to really challenge someone to a TLC match, but it is something that they can announce for a big championship. If there's a championship on the line, making it a TLC match would make sense. The problem is that we just see so many fucking ladder matches these days on the main roster, in NXT, AEW. We just see so fucking many of them. Ring of Honor, TNA. It's ridiculous. Like, they do just so many of them. It almost doesn't even feel like, that's probably why it hasn't even dawned on me, because we just see the ladder so much, and those basically are TLC matches because they use tables and chairs and shit. So what's the fucking difference, I know TNA's doing a TLC match, actually Bound for Glory this weekend. They call it Full Metal Mayhem, but it's basically their version of tables, ladders, and chairs, with the Hardys, the System, and ABC. In WWE, I'm sure we will see one again. It would just have to make sense. I don't know who that would be, who would be involved, but at some point, I'm sure they will do it again on the main roster. Absolutely. Your next question, hot or cold? Everyone rightfully hated Bill Watts' over-the-top rule since it was applied to every match, including, dumbest of all, the cruiserweight matches. But I think it would work great if applied to a single division, namely Ring of Honor's Pure Division, since that division largely focuses on mat wrestling and submissions rather than high spots anyway, as it should. Yeah, that would be fine. I really don't give a fuck about the Pure Division. I don't. I care about it probably a little bit more than I do the Heritage Cup shit in NXT. I feel like that stuff's even worse. It's a nice concept. I just don't really think anyone really cares. The Pure Division was different when they brought it back in 2019, 2020, whenever it was. and it was cool they brought it back. But I think it just has to do more with the current state of Ring of Honor. And it's clear to me that Tony Khan just doesn't care about the brand, doesn't really put in a lot of effort. And they do a lot of pure rules matches, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you one of them. I mean, I know there was one not that long ago that was actually very good, but it had two, like, submission-based guys. Lee Moriarty's great. He's the current champion. Couldn't tell you one title defense that he's had. I know he's defended the belt. Couldn't tell you which one of them that it was. I don't remember. I have no idea. And I watch all the Ring of Honor shows. So, yeah, you can apply that rule to the Pure division. That would make sense. But it's almost like no one watches it anyway, so what's the point? At least at this point. At Iwagu91, last couple of questions here from him. His first question was, your thoughts on Leon Slater? I think he's really talented. He had a very good match with Speedball Mike Bailey on Impact last week for the TNA X Division Championship. He's a very impressive prospect. I don't really know much about him as a character or his mic work. He hasn't really had a chance to do much of that so far in TNA, but from what I've seen of him in the ring, he's very good. So he's a great pickup for them. Hopefully he can continue to improve, and they can find like a feud or something like that, form a storyline where he can really find his footing and, kind of get over as a character. But in the ring, though, I think he's very, very good from what I've seen so far. Your second question, as we're now in the final quarter of the year, what do you make of TNA's product right now, despite the layoff of Scott D'Amore? It's a good question. I think TNA still is a very good product. I'm not going to say it's been better off since Scott, because that's not true. They were doing some stuff after Scott left that just didn't make any sense. I mean, there's still stuff that doesn't make sense, but that's every promotion. I think TNA's been fine without him. As far as like the on-air product goes, the TNA product has still been decent. The shows are still very good. The weekly shows are still enjoyable. And Bound for Glory shaping up, despite the lack of like long-term direction, it feels like a lot of the matches are just kind of thrown together for the sake of being thrown together. But the actual show should be very good, if only from an in-ring standpoint. You got Nick Nemeth, Joe Hendry in the main event, a couple of other big matches. So I'm looking forward to the show. But yeah, TNA's held up without him. He was a big loss, I'm sure, morale-wise behind the scenes. Was a big blow as well. But yeah, I do think that TNA's been able to kind of weather the storm. They didn't go crashing down. They did lose a lot of buzz after D'Amore left, because they had a lot of buzz when they first rebranded as TNA. But then again, they kind of regained some of that buzz with the Joe Hendry stuff popping off and the NXT relationship. So there is that. And I'm sure that probably would have happened anyway, even if D'Amore was there. So I don't really think much would have changed as far as that goes. His last question, with him coming up short to capture the World Heavyweight Championship from Gunther, do you see Sami Zayn getting involved with the Bloodline feud? I mentioned this before. The answer is yes, I do. I just feel like, one, what do you really do with him next? I guess he could feud with Drew McIntyre. They never really finished that feud earlier this year. But, I guess that would just kind of come out of nowhere because, Drew's not even around right now anyway. I would have Sammy be the fourth guy in War Games. I just feel like that makes the most sense. And it would make sense for Jay to be like, hey, I don't really trust you guys, Roman and Jimmy, that is. Sammy is someone I trust and like. And he was part of the Bloodline at one point. He was an honorary Uce, blah, blah, blah. I feel like that would be great. And I would much rather see Sammy in that spot in War Games at Survivor Series than fucking, Randy Orton or Cody or KO or anyone like that. That would just be stupid. And I guess you could call up Hikuleo, introduce him, but that also would be fucking random. So yeah, at this point I think Sammy would make the most sense. So maybe Jay is getting beat down and you think Roman and Jay are going to make the save or Jimmy's going to make the save, but it's actually Sami Zayn. And that's how you organically reintroduce him into the storyline as well. And he also doesn't really have to forgive Roman Reigns, but he's just doing it for Jay and not really for Roman or Jimmy. So you can kind of paint it that way. And I feel like it would also make sense. So we'll see, but I feel like that's the direction that I would go in personally. And that's going to do it, guys, for today's edition of #AskGSM, episode 569 here today for Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Thank you, Micah, for getting back to me as far as the live episode stuff goes. I did say last week maybe it's something we can toy with, try going live on Wednesdays at a certain time. But, we'll see at some point in the future. He had suggested maybe once a month. I was thinking even weekly, but once a month would work too. We'll see. I would love to do something like that, so just keep an eye out on the socials and whatnot for more updates, and I'll keep you guys posted. But like I said earlier, check out the all-new WrestleRant shirt in the description box down below. Click on the link, prowrestlingtees.com/WrestleRant. Buy the shirt, support the show, support the channel, support me and what I do. I appreciate it, you guys. I mean, you support the show simply by sending in questions and checking out the videos. We've done fucking 569 of these in the last 11 plus years. That is crazy. We're not stopping anytime soon. I'm doing these till I fucking die. So here we are. I'm glad you guys enjoy the content. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week. Next week is Halloween week. We're going to be going, not live, but we're going to be doing an episode the day before Halloween on All Hallows Eve. So I look forward to that. Is All Hallows Eve technically Halloween? I think it is. So wouldn't it be Halloween Eve? Here in the Northeast, they called it Mischief Day at one point, but I don't know how many people actually know about that. I got to get out of here. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.